Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Recap of Honor. I'm your host, Colin Tessier, here to talk all things Ring of Honor. This week's episode of Ring of Honor, the last week's episode of Ring of Honor, many various news things related to Ring of Honor as well. Before I get started, I just want to remind you all of this show. Again, we do here WrestleZone is available on any number of streaming platforms, so it's SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be. We've got you covered. So I know myself, looking into ahead of this week's episode of Ring of Honor, before I watched it, I was very excited. I got the chance to speak with Shane Taylor, 1/3 of the reigning Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions. That is up on all of those platforms I just mentioned, on our YouTube and whatnot. Very, very highly recommend that interview. Very, very insightful comments from Shane Taylor about this match, about his world title chase in Ring of Honor, and as an amazing bonus, this man cut a promo on Mr. Owl from the Tootsie Roll Lollipop commercials. It's fantastic. I know I'm biased because it's my interview, but you've got to check it out. If you even if it's only to hear about Mr. Owl, that part's at the end, the last like 5 minutes or so. Do yourself a favor, check that one out. It's a lot of fun. So with that being said, I entered this show, and that with that match in mind, I'm very excited, looking forward to it, because Shane Taylor would be facing in the main event Jay Lethal, Kenny King, and Brody King in this fatal four-way match between the four unofficial leaders of the top leading stables in Ring of Honor: Violence Limited, Shane Taylor Promotions, The Foundation, and LFI, of course. And each one of these stables we've seen kind of ebb and flow a little bit in terms of like they'll win gold, they'll lose it. It's definitely just like battle for supremacy. And I've been talking about that for months on this show. And it just keeps rolling and evolving. And like I said, it's kind of this seesaw of like one group will kind of like take power briefly, and then it'll kind of sway back. We saw Violence Limited win the tag titles at one point, then they dropped them. Shane Taylor Promotions is still reigning supreme as the tag team champions in the six-man division, I should say. And also you've got the Foundation has had the gold at various points, and I believe Dragon Lee still has the TV title. So it's hard to keep track because all the titles just keep flying over the place. So with all that in mind, definitely forward to that match in the main event. Before I get there, I do want to talk about the other match on this show. It was Brian Johnson, the Mecca, facing PJ Black. Definitely a match with some history and some, a personal meaning here for Brian Johnson and PJ Black. These guys were tag team partners. It was like a student mentor kind of thing before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, I guess for lack of a better word, PJ Black kind of didn't really appear that much other than a brief run in the pure title tournament, and then that left Brian Johnson to really kind of break out on his own, and I've definitely enjoyed that in the last year, let's say, dating back to last September. So it's been cool to see Brian Johnson kind of come into his own in that sense, and then you bring PJ Black back. We've seen them kind of team up a little bit here and there in recent weeks, not necessarily successfully so. So this match here, definitely a chance to kind of see, has the student surpassed the master, or did Brian Johnson still have something to learn? As it turned out, this was a Pure Rules match, by the way. Brian Johnson has officially entered the Pure Division. Last week, he kind of bent the rules wisely, placed them in his own advantage and won a Pure Rules Gauntlet match. So two weeks in a row, emerging victorious in a Pure Rules setting. So and it's funny because obviously it's Pure Rules, it's the Pure Division, and 2 weeks in a row, Brian Johnson has won and he's emerged victorious by breaking the rules. Like he kind of he cheated to win the Pure Gauntlet match last week, and he basically punched PJ Black in the face, which is not allowed in Pure Rules match, behind the referee's back, and he poked him in the eye to pick up the win there when he hit the process finisher. So, for me, I'm very biased. Brian Johnson is definitely one of my favorites in Ring of Honor. I think he's so underrated. I will say that every single week. I think he's, for my money, one of the best promo guys in the business, bar none. I do not say that lightly. I think he's just so very talented, and not even wants to say underrated, because we are seeing him really start to kind of come into his own here. He defeated PJ Black, so like I said, in this test of where he stood compared to the guy that's kind of had been his mentor. He won, and as also pointing out, they surprised that Johnson shook PJ Black's hand after the match. I mean, yeah, I think that, and even before the match, they kind of had foreshadowed that, where Johnson had said something like PJ Black's the one guy on this roster who I don't think is a bozo. Brian Johnson just cracks me up. I think he's great. I really do. I really hope to see eventually that him get at least a title shot. 2 weeks in a row here with a win. I feel like he will. And again, it's an interesting story where you've got Johnson kind of breaking the rules and not being very pure for intentional pun there, but rising up the ranks here in the pure division. Now we do know that Josh Woods won the title at Death Before Dishonor, so very well could be on the road to an exciting clash between two of the top kind of rising stars here in Ring of Honor. So I think that'd be a pretty fun one, assuming that's in the works at some point soon. So Saul Sullivan saying he doesn't think that Brian Johnson should be called the Mecca. I mean, he had been number one Brian Johnson, and that wasn't really working. I will say, how do you feel about maybe the name itself? He's really embraced the identity. I think he's making work for himself. He's cocky and he backs it up. And like I said, he's really coming along here. And I really do enjoy seeing him getting featured 2 weeks in a row, especially. Like usually kind of we'll get like one match and then kind of nothing for a little bit. But 2 weeks in a row for Brian Johnson, as someone that's a big fan of his, I was very, very happy to see that. And to pick up the win 2 weeks in a row, like that's all good. It's a good time. It's also wondering if the Johnson versus Danhausen feud is over. I thought this feud was a lot of fun. I believe Johnson won the rubber match. I think it was Danhausen, I believe, won on the YouTube exclusive match. Then I think Johnson won on a TV match, and then the rubber match, I think Johnson won that as well. So I think that one is over. We saw Johnson face PCO a couple months ago. And Danhausen having been teamed up with PCO, that was kind of a continuation. So, but no, I think that is kind of in the past. I mean, no knock on Danhausen. I don't exactly see him in the pure division. He is definitely in the TV division right now. So at least for now, I would say it looks like Johnson is kind of pivoting into that. Not to say they couldn't revisit it, because I said it when they were feuding originally. Johnson and Danhausen are two very distinct and fun personalities. So I know, at least for me personally, I wouldn't mind seeing them wage war again. So maybe that will be in the card at some point in the near future. But for now, Brian Johnson very much focused on the pure division, and he's doing a pretty darn good job at it. So, and speaking of which, yes, Saul, I was just about to bring this up. I had mentioned it last show, which was we did 2 weeks ago. But yes, PCO very supports, and I think PCO himself has confirmed that his contract is coming up. I believe it runs out on November 30th. So that means that on December 1st, he'll be a free agent. And I saw one quote where he had said like he intended to leave. That's what some reports have said. PSO, I think, has kind of walked that back in some other interviews where he said like he didn't want to be taken out of context. So not positive whether he's leaving or not. I saw one report that said he was leaving. I've seen one quote from PSO himself saying that something that. So one interview where he said that was recorded in kind of out of context. And if there's also, I mean, there's still just about 2 months now left for him to kind of make up his mind about what he wants to do. So, I mean, anything can happen. Anything can change. But we do know that his contract is coming up. And I had at least vaguely known that. I interviewed PCO, I think, back in February. So, and he had mentioned it was coming up later this fall. So that lines up, at least generally. So I've also made no secret I'm a big fan of PCO. So as a Ring of Honor fan as well, I hope he sticks around, but he's not being he doesn't get utilized maybe as much as he may hope, or as maybe he, I think there's a lot more he could contribute. And if he's not really in the cards Ring of Honor, then maybe he would be better off going somewhere else. But I will say, I think Ring of Honor could still use him. I think he's in a great Ring of Honor. So I hope it works out for everybody involved. Regardless, I think PCO is very talented, and I want the best for him and for Ring of Honor. So once we know more about that situation, we will have more information about it. But right now, it does seem to be a little up in the air. Saul, another question as well. I appreciate your comments here, Saul. Yes, Flip Gordon, he was not on the show this week, but in recent weeks, we've seen him having, as Saul calls it, an amnesia-like gimmick. So basically, I believe it was the second night of Glory of Honor where Flip Gordon was facing Mark Briscoe, and I think it was Brian Johnson in a tag team match. Mark Briscoe kind of like slammed Flip on his head on a chair, and Flip got helped to the back after that. And then I think a week or two later, Flip was backstage, and he referenced Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks by name, which is very surprising considering the history with Ring of Honor and AEW. And then it was a Death Before Dishonor and the Honor Rumble. He comes out in this like retro gear and retro entrance video, very much like what we saw when he first came to Ring of Honor. He had the American flag, the same hairstyle. So definitely this like, if not amnesia, like kind of like a maybe that's the best comparison, kind of like a time displacement gimmick, I guess, where he thinks it's 2018 and it's 2021. So I think it's a fun gimmick. I'm curious to see how much they really do with it in terms of these references to the guys that were in Ring of Honor and now are in AEW. Because again, he mentioned Cody and the Young Bucks. There's more they could reference there as well. But as I saw of Death Before Dishonor, he did more reference kind of just his general gimmick from the past. So I'll point out that Flip was on episodes of BTE being the Elite. So definitely that connection there as well. So yeah, we didn't see Flip this week, but I'd be curious to see kind of what the next little wrinkle in that storyline or develop a gimmick there is, because I think that's been a fun, creative way to kind of revitalize Flip Gordon here in Ring of Honor. So otherwise, here on this week's episode of Ring of Honor Wrestling, we had that main event that I mentioned: Shane Taylor, Kenny King, Jay Lethal, and Brody King. Like, it's hard to get all the King straight there. But this is a very, very fun match. Before the bout, we had some pre-match promos. Jay Lethal saying that he wants the Ring of Honor World title. That's something he said before. He wants it again, or he even said he needs it again. Then we had Brody King saying he came this close to winning the title at Death Before Dishonor from Bandito, and he's not going to let anybody stop him from getting another shot at it. Then we had Shane Taylor saying that, this match was his chance to get revenge on Kenny King and also to climb the ranks in the world title ranking. So we're kind of perhaps a clash of motives there. Although in my interview with him, he said that was not the case. And then kind of Kenny King saying that, back in the day when warring gangs kind of had an issue, that they'd sit down together and sort it out. This is not that's not this. Like these guys are going to go out there and fight. And he was confident that LFI would reign supreme. Fun match, four of Ring of Honor's best and brightest here in the main event here. You kind of know what to expect. Shane Taylor, for my money, one of the best strikers in wrestling here, with some devastating headbutts and forearms and whatnot. Kenny King had kind of not a coming out party, because we know what he can do. He's a veteran, and Shane Taylor himself, in my interview with him, called him one of the very best. Brody King, very, very talented. He's a monster. He's great. And Jay Lethal, the franchise. All these guys proved exactly why they are held in such high regard here. But Kenny King definitely had at least a couple moments where he really kind of reminded you, hey, this guy is legit. This guy, maybe don't sleep on him in the world title scene here. But in the end here, this match actually was pretty brief, where I think it was only about 10 minutes once it actually started. And it picked up real quick, where everyone just started flying around, doing crazy things, waging absolute war with each other. In the end, Brody King pinned Shane Taylor with a lariat kind of out of nowhere, and that surprised me. Where Shane Taylor, you really rarely see him get pinned, at least cleanly like that. We saw, I think, Kenny King pin him in a tag team, a 6 or 8 man tag match a couple weeks ago. But in a match like this, that was definitely unexpected to see Shane Taylor take the pin like that. But that's kind of more power to Brody King. So as also saying here, maybe that's kind of a indicator that we very well might see Brody King at least get another title shot, or as Saul saying, becoming the next Ring of Honor World Champion. So as I mentioned a minute ago, we do know that that Bandito currently holds the gold. So that's a match I think we've seen here and there, maybe in singles matches, but definitely not one we've seen all that often. So with Bandito's kind of electric speed and Brody King's impressive power, that's kind of writes itself to me. So I'd be looking forward to seeing that. But we do know that based on what happened at Death Before Dishonor, Alex Zane came back and won the Honor Rumble, so he has earned a world title shot as well. So I feel like we're going to see that first, maybe on ROH TV, and maybe to kind of segue here. So also asking if fans are allowed to go to Ring of Honor events. As far as the last update after Death Before Dishonor, we talked about this on our post show for that, but there were reportedly no plans for Ring of Honor to do more in-person shows this year, and that just means that there are no concrete plans. It's not like they have a date for another show in November, whereas I think that once had been the tentative plan. Instead, now COVID concerns again rising up here, they decided to kind of take a wait. It was I believe the quote was a wait and see approach. So I don't really know. I think the hope is that they will do Final Battle in December to end the year, but for now it does appear that they'll be going back to, and they have been since that pay-per-view, doing the closed set tapings for the TV shows. So to answer Saul's question, no, at least at this very point in time, fans are not allowed to go to Ring of Honor events live in person for the weekly tapings, and for again, we don't have a set date for the next in-person show or the next live pay-per-view show And I think Final Battle makes a lot of sense here for that next show with fans in person. And so I'll bring up something that I was going to talk about anyway, because there's definitely some overlap here. So last night we had PWG Tremendous. PWG is back. They've got a great roster, and definitely you're going to see some Ring of Honor names on it as well. Bandito is the reigning world champion. Brody King was on there as well. He was teaming with Malachi Black, one of my favorites, and those two faced Flamita, another Ring of Honor guy, and Black Taurus in a match for the vacant tag titles. And I think in a move that surprised many people, Brody King and Malachi Black won those titles and won in that match. So they are now the PWG World Tag Team Champions. And that's surprising because, I mean, Brody King, Ring of Honor, Malachi Black, AEW, and as I mentioned a minute ago with Flip Gordon and his like quote unquote amnesia gimmick, but in this era of the Forbidden Door bursting open and all this collaboration, the one door, for lack of a better word, that has remained pretty closed has been Ring of Honor and AEW. The two companies kind of had a messy. It's complicated, right? I mean, Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks left. Ring of Honor went through every building phase. Cody and the Young Bucks, alongside some others, formed AEW. And, since the company started, we haven't seen a whole lot of, or really any real collaboration, not nearly in the same way that we've seen Impact, New Japan, some other companies, NWA work with AEW. So having Malachi and Brody as the PWG, tag team champions, there could be nothing to it. There could just be a general kind of vague collaboration. Brody King did say in a recent interview that he considers his partnership with Malachi right now exclusive to PWG, so I wouldn't expect to see them popping up on AEW or anything as a team. But he said he'd be open to collaborating and kind of going over the place and capitalizing on this era of collaboration there. And it's also pointing out that PWG is Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Yes, it's a very one of the leading kind of independent companies here in the wrestling world. Here they've got a long prestigious history with lots of very very famous talent there. The Young Bucks competed there once upon a time. Many others as well. So yeah, it's definitely worth noting that Black and King won the titles, and with Bandito as the world champion for PWG as well. Definitely plenty of Ring of Honor presence. Now is almost an influence, but definitely a lot of presence in terms of this kind of overlap there. And I've said it before. I hope the day does come as a Ring of Honor fan that we see some kind of more, at least crossover, if not collaboration. We've seen, I think, Joe Keys and LSG are the ones that come to mind of Ring of Honor guys we've seen on AEW Dark or Dark Elevation. But otherwise, that's been about it. We haven't really seen anybody else from Ring of Honor that I can recall really pop up on AEW programming whatsoever. So yeah, I hope the day does come that we see more collaboration there. But right now, I think in a vacuum today, it seems like the PWG tag title win is more of about PWG and not about Ring of Honor or AEW, and that's fine. It was a fun moment to kind of see, hey, Malachi and Brody won the titles. That's good for them. I think they're a very cool pairing. If the day does come, it'd be really cool to see Brody and Malachi team up either in AEW or especially, given we're doing the Ring of Honor show, it'd be very fun to see them pop up in Ring of Honor. So who knows? It's 2021. If anything, we've learned in wrestling that anything can happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing how things kind of progress there. But otherwise here, we do know what to look forward to next week. We're going to get Taylor Rust and Alex Zane facing the Briscoes. That'll be a fun matchup there. As I mentioned, Alex Zane he won the Honor Rumble. He returned to Ring of Honor in doing so. Taylor Rust also returned at Death Before Dishonor. Those two will be sticking around because they did the tapings after the pay-per-view. So definitely a big match there. The facing the Briscoes, the greatest tag team in Ring of Honor history. So definitely a tough challenge there. And otherwise here, we also have an open challenge from Violence Unlimited where it was Death Before Dishonor. They issued a challenge for pure wrestlers. Now next week they're issuing an open challenge for anybody that wants to quote unquote get violent. And I don't know what to expect there. Like you can kind of say, okay, I know that this wrestler or that wrestler is like a real pure wrestler. But for anybody that wants to get violent, like I don't really know what to expect there. I'd be curious to see. We saw at Death Before Dishonor, it was Lee Moriarty, who's now signed with AEW. and also LSG and John Walters. So one guy, a member of the Ring of Honor roster, one guy that's been with that worked with Ring of Honor a good bit last year, and bringing Lee Moriarty in as kind of a one-off there. So I guess I'd expect something similar here. I mean, but I don't know who to expect. So also, I'm predicting maybe Silas Young. I think that's possible. But I don't know. Like, it's tough to say other than people in Vons Unlimited. If the Briscoes weren't on the card, I would think maybe them, but they're already on the card. It's tough to say. I'm looking forward to seeing who answers that challenge. I imagine I don't know if we'll find out before the show or not. I haven't heard anything about that. But I will say I've been a big fan of what Vons Unlimited has been doing, and I've been watching more of some other promotions kind of through my love of Ring of Honor. I've been watching Tony Deppen wrestle for GCW, and he's been putting on some great matches. He faced Ron Funches in a very fun match where Danhausen showed up. That was a lot of fun. And he also faced Taiji Ishimori of New Japan fame at the Got Lost a Lot show last week, so that was a lot of fun as well. Likewise, Chris Dickinson, definitely, he's been storing good amount in GCW as well. He's in Violence Limited as well. We also saw Homicide pop up in AEW last week. That was a lot of fun. So it's a fun time. And for that reason, again, anything can happen in wrestling. Who even knows at this point of what to expect? So, I like what they're doing. I would imagine they're going to win that match, whoever does answer it, does answer the open challenge. I thought they had a great match with the Foundation, the Glory of Honor. They replayed part of that on this week's episode of Ring of Honor Wrestling. And just, every time they're out there, I'm very, very impressed. It's also saying, love that Danhausen. Yeah, Danhausen's great. He's a lot of fun. But yeah, I definitely looking forward to seeing what happens next week. Like I said, we're not really sure what to expect otherwise here going forward with live shows. Again, I guess for now, it seems like we are going back to that closed set tapings for TV at least. And as far as we know, no plans for, for anything beyond that. So looking at anything else here, the latest edition of the X-Files sees the Ring of Honor will be bringing in or signing another women's competitor for the kind of growing women's division. Beyond that, that's all they really said. So not sure what to make of that. It was very, very vague. Women's wrestling is booming right now, so I would imagine that whoever it is, will be a good addition to the roster, and I'm looking forward to seeing whoever it might be. I know I enjoy the women's tournament here. They culminated with Roxy winning the title. Very, very happy for her. Speaking of her, I believe it was last week or so she retained the Ring of Honor Women's title at a independent show in Texas. I think it was New Texas Pro Wrestling. It was a lot of fun there. So in that, again, the spirit of collaboration and crossover, Roxy defending the title at an independent show, it's like, all right, maybe we will see some more crossover collaboration, at the very least, kind of even one-offs kind of representing the Ring of Honor brand. I think that's pretty darn cool. So it's also insane that the likes of Ring of Honor is doing, not jumping through a lot of hoops. I mean, I say it every week here. Ring of Honor, especially, you think about the weekly show. It's 50 minutes with some commercials in there. So it is the easiest watch of any TV show out there, I would say, bar none, in terms of wrestling, at least. Not going to get too far afield there, but it's 50 minutes. It's the best wrestling on the planet. You got pure wrestling. You got Violence Limited. You got Shane Taylor, Jay Lethal. All these guys, so very talented. I can't say enough good things about the product, about the company, about the wrestlers here. I'm biased, yes, and I'll admit that unashamedly so. It's great. Ring of Honor, it's very underrated. Part of my hope in doing this show is just kind of get the word out there, being like, hey, everybody, watch Ring of Honor. It's free TV. It's on Fight TV every Monday night here. I watch it through the Ring of Honor website. You should be able to watch it Monday mornings there. I have Honor Club, though, so I'm not sure if that's through that subscription or not. But if not, it's always available on Fight TV Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So 50 minutes, super easy, very, very underrated. So definitely can't recommend it enough. And as I mentioned, Alex Zane coming back. I mentioned Taylor Russ coming back. And this thought of potential collaboration elsewhere. I mean, that opens up the door for free agents, and it's also pointing out maybe he wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Murphy come in, Buddy Matthews as he's now known. I mean, we've heard at least some reports that maybe he won't go to AEW. So best kept secret of a wrestler, best kept secret of a company. Seems like a pretty good match there. I definitely would not mind seeing Murphy or Buddy Matthews in Ring of Honor either. So, I think regardless, they don't even need to bring in people like that because they have a very, very good roster, and it's just a matter of of showcasing that. So again, I really enjoyed this week's show. I thought it was a great main event. I'm a big fan of Brian Johnson, so that's a winning recipe for me. If I had to rate it here, I would say I would go for an 8. It's a good show, good matches, 2 matches, 50 minutes, super easy to watch. Enjoy it a lot. And it's a good show. So if you're watching this, I assume that you at least have some interest in Ring of Honor. And if you're not watching it, you got to check out the show itself. Again, I watched it through Honor Club or the Ring of Honor website, but it's always available for everybody on Fight TV Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Gotta check it out. You're not going to regret it. It's super easy to watch. If you are willing to watch 3 hours of Raw, you're not going to regret watching a 50-minute episode of Ring of Honor Wrestling. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. So otherwise here, it's also only giving it 8.5 as well. It was a good show this week. I mean, Ring of Honor pretty consistently puts on just a good show. Like they don't miss. I will say that. So otherwise here, John Clark and I will be back here Monday night to talk about Monday Night Raw for anyone that's interested in that one if you're watching this show. Otherwise, John and I review NXT or NXT 2.0 every Tuesday. The Dynamite Dudes of Rampage cover all things AEW. And otherwise, Rob D. Fleece and I cover Friday Night SmackDown on Saturdays. And otherwise, we have a great stream of interviews constantly coming at you guys. I have recently interviewed a former WWE star Fandango. That Shane Taylor interview I just mentioned. You gotta check it out. The man cuts a promo on Mr. Owl. It's absolute gold. Even if you just want to see that part, it's the last 5 minutes. You're not going to regret watching that. It's hysterical. Gotta check it out. Otherwise, Bill Pitcher recently interviewed CM Punk, Paul White. It's all this great stuff. I can't even think of all of it. It's all available on our SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Bell Podcast, or maybe we've got you covered. So remember to leave a like and subscribe. We appreciate your support. And as Saul Sultan says, remember to do the one thing we do here at WrestleZone, and that, my friends, is to enjoy wrestling. Thanks for listening, everybody.